Hi everyone, Maria McGrath, founder of Restore Balance and Harmony, talking about epigenetics and ancestral healing. Okay, healing our our inherited emotions from our bloodline. Okay, really important to understand that when there is unresolved trauma, emotions, deep hurts, that emotion and beliefs as well, that emotion gets attached to our DNA. It changes the DNA and it then gets passed to the next generation and the next generation and the next generation. So what we need to understand is right now, for example, I am not just Maria, born in 1972, and I have a sum total of my life experience. Okay, that is how we have been brought up to believe that, right now I am running a program on everything that has happened in my life. All that I've learned in those first 7 years of life, all the experiences from the people that I've been around, through school, through friends, through family, and then through the work and every other experience in life. That is what I'm running. So that is how we are pretty much being taught. And that is most of our understanding of what the program that we're running and the way that we are right now is due to those factors. Nurture and nature of our life to this point. But that is not all of it, okay? We have another program running in our DNA. We have the program that has been passed down through the DNA. It is there on our DNA from past bloodline relatives. Okay, inherited emotions, inherited trauma, inherited hurts, inherited beliefs that we have that are all there in our DNA. Now, for some, this can be our way of life from the moment we're born, or it can be sitting there in our DNA and be triggered at certain points through our life when certain events happen that trigger different things. So for some people, they can be born and they can have massive fears of different things their entire life, and they don't know why it's just there. Some people, it may be triggered, anxiety at 13 years old. Oh my God, I don't know where it come from. And now, my whole life has changed and it just gets worse and worse and worse. For me, for example, there was sadness. I can call it sort of depression now, but I didn't know that word when I was a kid. It certainly wasn't talked about quite as much, but it was there and I didn't understand it and I didn't know why, because life was good. Why was I feeling sad? It hit me again when I had a car accident at 18. It got quite bad then. And, later, I had needed hip replacements when I was 30. No children. There was times and triggers throughout, and it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. But it wasn't until I worked on healing my DNA, my ancestral trauma, the emotion that is not just sitting there at a conscious level, okay? It's deep in our subconscious. It is deep hurts that are sitting at the subconscious, at our soul level, okay? There is so much that we're not understanding about how our systems is running, and that's why I wanted to do this video series. I want people to know that it is possible to heal the trauma of our ancestors, this inherited trauma, okay? And I want people to understand this term epigenetics. I want you to know that this is science. Okay, I want you to know that this has been 50 years of studying. Now, in that 50 years, there has only been 2 or 3 generations of patterns being found in humans, okay? Because in 50 years, if you need to wait 20 to 30 years to see those patterns, you know, forming and going through, you know, generations. So, you know, in 50 years, they've only done 2 or 3 in humans, but mice, you know, they go through a whole lifespan in like 12 weeks or something or other ridiculous. So they can do, scientists can prove a lot more. They can prove 15 generations of trauma being passed through the DNA in cows, for example. Okay. So if you, and you may know people who, and I'm going to give you a couple of stories here, a couple of examples. You know, you may know people who you have seen that have a pattern running through their family history. You may be, and you may see in yourself a pattern running through family history. You know, you can see people who have been, you know, in bad relationships, in domestic violence. You know, generally it could be, you know, the grandmother, the mother, the daughter, and then you see the granddaughter, and she's dating a guy who is absolutely dreadful, and you can see that it's not a good relationship, that she has been drawn to this kind of person who resembles you know, the past patterns that's gone on through that family history. Now, it also, you know, Maz Shermer, who is the founder of the Institute of Women, the innovator of Creatrix. Now, she talks about 4 generations in her family of women being sexually abused. Okay, 4 generations. There's been 4 generations in her family that have had a gun pointed at their head. Okay, so that's 2. That it just keeps pattern throughout the generations. I recently did that Ancestral Summit, and the woman who was the interviewing all the speakers, she talked about her family history, and there was 4 generations, and it was men and women, but there were 4 generations that had an effect. Some of them had died. 3 generations had died, and the 4th one had actually been injured, but it had been by fire. Okay, how is that possible? We, you know, this fear in our DNA, you know, this fear of fire, you're thinking about fire all the time. You know, it's literally like a magnet drawing that event to you because it's what you constantly think about. But that is a trauma that is in your DNA, and it is there until you deal with that, until you understand and recognize that there is trauma in your DNA, there is a way that you can deal with that. Now, that could be anything. It can be sexual abuse. It could be domestic violence, a pattern that's running through. It could be depression. It could be sadness. It could be absolutely anything. And beliefs are there, and they're stuck in our DNA as well. Beliefs, I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. Money is hard. Life is hard. Who's got that one? Oh my God, life is a struggle. It's always so effing hard. You know, these are things that are there, that are, you know, in our DNA. And that's not to say that I touched on everything, because there's a zillion things. Okay, we don't have to go back too far in history to think about, you know, events that would have had a major traumatic event on our ancestors. You know, go back just, you know, this century, a generation or 2, and we've had, you know, some may have had fathers, grandfathers that went to war. There would be grandfathers or great-grandfathers that, you know, were victims of genocide, of the Holocaust. You know, you go back further, and there was famine, and there was drought, and there was depression, as in, you know, there was no work for anyone and everyone was struggling. You know, they are events that create emotion. Of course they do. And all of those emotions get attached to the DNA. So just in 3, maybe 4 generations, I've just not, there could be all sorts of past hurts that are sitting there and affecting the way that we now live our life. Okay, that is there. And the stressful life that we are living, the fast-paced stress, is triggering all of these old hurts that are in our DNA, and they're coming up to the forefront. That is why there's so much anxiety. There is so much stress. There is so much anxiety. There is so much sadness. There's so much worry. There's so much anger and hate and frustration in the world. Road rage, you see it all the time on the news. Why are people acting in this ridiculous way? Someone cuts them off and they want to kill them, for goodness sake. That is all of this stuff that's just there, and people don't even know why they're reacting in the way that they are, because there's just so much shit sitting in their DNA. So much layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer. Okay, I haven't even looked at my notes of all of this stuff that I've got here. And I've managed to talk another 11 minutes. I'm good at this. So look, know that there is a reason why you feel the way that you do. Okay, it may be from this lifetime. Okay, but it may be you are feeling, or maybe it's layered on top of emotions and hurts and traumas from your ancestors, okay, from your mother, from your grandmother, your great, okay, 15 generation in cows. How far does that take us back in humans? Where were we living? What were the events that were going on to our ancestors at that time? If you think about what they could have went through, what emotions they could have been feeling, what traumas they may have been dealt with, what emotions would have been attached to that DNA that has been passed down and is now sitting in you. That is something to think about, okay? And recognize that, all of this shit that you're feeling may not be even yours. But know that you can get rid of it, okay? You can release that at a soul level with a tool that was innovated based on the science of epigenetics, okay? And also the female mind, okay? Which is different to the male, okay? There is a tool for the male. Innovatrix, Creatrix is for the female. Now I'm going to go and talk a bit more in the next video. There is just so much that is around this that I really think people need to know. You need to understand to be able to really live your absolute best life. Because right now we're just weighed down. How can we not be weighed down? If we understand all of this, how can we not be weighed down by past emotional baggage? Okay. Now, I said this in the last video. I'm going to say it in this one. If the soul is ignored long enough, the body rebels. Okay. A mass rises in the throat, rises to the surface, and a cavity in the lung riddled with TB, maybe it's cancer these days, the body announces its existence. Okay, basically, we're living in here. We don't need to consciously breathe. We don't need to consciously have our heart beating and think about all of the 11 systems that we have running our body. They do it automatically. So they have to, for us to stop and say, hey, there's something wrong, they have to give us, the body is telling us that there is something wrong, something that we need to deal with. So it is throwing illness at us. Okay? Understand what's going on in your heart, your mind, your soul, your body. They're all connected, and they need to be reconnected to work in unison, to be aligned for us to live our best life. Okay, I will see you in the next video. If you want To find out more, you book a chat with me. Okay, if you want to get rid of your ancestral baggage, reach out and have a chat to see if this could be for you. Okay, it's not for everyone, but it could be for you. See you in the next video. Bye.